There's one thing that separates your marriage from every other relationship in your entire life. And when this one thing goes, your relationship, your marriage just becomes like a normal relationship, like being friends with somebody or being roommates or acquaintances. And through all the relationships in your life, you can be friends with people and you can do activities with people and you can have all different types of relationships. But your marriage is sacred. And when that goes away, there's not going to be a whole lot left. A marriage without intimacy just becomes a simple partnership, sort of like a business agreement. And that's why the first pillar to a successful relationship is sexual intimacy. When this piece is missing, more often than not, the rest of the entire relationship is doomed. And I lived this personally. In my first marriage, this ended up happening to us where this was no longer a part of the relationship that we had. We slept in separate beds. We were on separate schedules. There was no touching. There was no kissing. There was no intimacy whatsoever that was happening. And it's no surprise that eventually the relationship will crumble because that first pillar is not standing strong. And when that first pillar cracks and weakens, everything else is going to fall. The entire house is going to crumble. This isn't just a side issue or an afterthought or a secondary piece to a marriage. This is critical infrastructure that creates biblical unity when done correctly. So let's see what the Bible has to say about it. If we look at 1 Corinthians 7:5, it says, "Do not deprive each other except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control." So this command says that a husband and a wife should never deprive each other of sexual intimacy unless it's for an agreed upon time, specifically and usually when prayer is needed, when they need to focus more on their relationship with God and less on each other. So that means that, honey, I don't feel good. Honey, I have a headache. Honey, I'm tired. Those things break the marital vow. Now, forgiveness is also important, so we should forgive our spouses when they're making this mistake, but it reveals that nor a husband nor a wife should deprive each other of sexual connection and sexual intimacy. It's no surprise that if we fail to follow the instruction that God gave us, that the relationship ends up not working out. And at best, you're going to be unhappy in your relationship. And so, of the 6 things that are required for a relationship to work, this is the first pillar. And this isn't about control of your spouse. This is about biblical unity. It's about protection. Protection to make sure that the marriage is insulated from the outside world. Paul says it himself. He said that make sure that you're not depriving each other or Satan will tempt you. We already know that the enemy wants to destroy our marriages. The enemy hates us. They hate our marriages because our marriages are supposed to be a reflection of God's design and his love for us. And if there's just the slightest chink in the armor, Satan can get in there, in between your marriage, and destroy it from within. That's what Paul said. Sexual intimacy protects the marriage, and it strengthens and creates the bond which allow 2 people to become one flesh, like it says in Genesis. And what that means is that the husband and wife, you're essentially treating yourselves as one, and you're not going to deprive your body of something. If you're hungry, you're not going to deprive your body of food. So if you're one body, why would you deprive your marriage of sexual intimacy? To just leave the door open for Satan to walk in and just destroy it. I've seen this happen firsthand. You probably know somebody where they got divorced. And more often than not, the reason they got divorced is that there was a failure or a lacking in the sexual intimacy. Refusing sexual intimacy with your spouse creates distance between you and not closeness. And who out there would say, yeah, I want to create distance with my wife? Why would you want to create distance? Don't you want to create closeness, oneness, and protect the marriage? Well, of course you do. Anybody would say that. But in our actions, we realize, oh, I'm too tired. I have a headache. Not tonight, sweetie. And you create distance in your relationship, and you open the door for the enemy to walk in and destroy your marriage. And it doesn't crumble in an explosion. Your marriage downgrades slowly and erodes, and chinks in the armor form. And then now your walls are weak, and the enemy can just climb right over them. Do you want that? Does your spouse want that? I can't imagine that anybody that's married wants to weaken their relationship. So why would you ever choose to refuse sexual intimacy? The answer is you shouldn't. And usually before it disappears altogether, it becomes transactional. It becomes about control. You know, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. And that is a recipe of failure, a recipe for disaster. God's design is perfect. God, as the creator, knows us and knows us as men and women and the harmonious relationship that occurs when we are brought together. That's why God said to Adam that it was not enough, that he needed to make a woman for him, because they needed to become one together. And then God tells us that we should not refuse sexual intimacy unless it's agreed upon. Intimacy is not optional in a marriage. It's foundational. And it's the one thing that separates your marriage from every other relationship in your life. That is why the first pillar to success in marriage is sexual intimacy. And if you're struggling in this area, you cannot fix a marriage by avoiding intimacy. You can only fix a marriage by drawing closer to God. All the therapy, all the self-help, all the stuff out there in our culture, that's not going to fix it. What will fix it is following God's design, because he's the creator. You're probably thinking about your spouse as you're watching this video, and do your marriage a favor and create closeness and go up to them, tell them you love them, give them a hug, give them a kiss, and allow intimacy to blossom and bloom and create closeness in your marriage. It's never too late to start now.